I always thought signing the divorce papers would be the final act. A clean break. A heavy sigh of relief. But nothing about my marriage to Tyler ended cleanly, and nothing about the aftermath has brought me any relief. It was 2:37 a.m. when I woke up to the sound of footsteps. Slow, heavy, deliberate. At first, I thought I was dreaming. Maybe it was a leftover echo from the nightmare that had startled me awake. But when I sat up and looked through the sliver of hallway visible through my cracked bedroom door, I saw the shadow. Tall. Still. Just standing there. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I couldn't. My breath caught in my throat as I stared at the figure in the hallway, heart pounding so hard I thought it might shake the bed. And then he moved. He turned around and walked back toward the guest room. I knew that silhouette anywhere. Tyler. He was still here. Still living under the same roof as me. Still acting like nothing had changed. I should back up. 3 months ago, I filed for divorce. It wasn't sudden, not really. Tyler and I had been unraveling for years. What started as sweet high school love grew into something confusing. Toxic. Eventually cruel. He gaslighted me. Made me question my own reality. My friends faded away one by one. He didn't like how much influence they had on me. My world slowly shrank until it was just him, our house, and my silence. I didn't even realize how small I had become until I saw the look on my sister's face at Thanksgiving last year. She barely recognized me. Neither did I. So, I did the hardest thing I've ever done. I walked into that courtroom, told the truth, and signed the papers. The judge granted me the house. I thought that meant he would leave. But Tyler didn't leave. He smiled, packed 2 boxes, put them in the guest room, and stayed. Just until I get on my feet, he said. It's only fair, he said. It's still my house too, he whispered one night as he stood too close behind me in the kitchen. But the papers said otherwise. I tried to be civil. I really did. At first, I thought maybe he just needed time. Maybe he was too embarrassed to go back to his parents. I told myself I was being kind, reasonable, human. But then the weird things started happening. The doors I locked would end up open. My mail started disappearing. My cat, Daisy, refused to enter the guest room, hissing any time she passed the door. I began sleeping with my bedroom locked. That night, when I saw him standing in the hallway, was the night everything shifted. I stayed frozen until I heard the soft click of his door. And then I got out of bed. Quietly. Slowly. I crept down the hall. Heart racing, skin crawling. His door was shut. I pressed my ear against it. Nothing. I backed away, walked into the kitchen, and flipped on the light. And there on the counter was my phone. Unlocked. Open to my email drafts. He had read them. All of them. The one I'd been too scared to send to my lawyer. The one where I begged for help. The one where I said I was scared. My fingers trembled as I picked it up. The screen was still warm. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the living room couch, lights on, staring at the hallway. Every sound made me flinch. At 6:12 a.m., I finally texted my sister. You were right. He's not going to leave. I need help. She replied instantly. I'm coming over. Today. We're figuring this out. Tyler wasn't there when my sister, Nicole, arrived. His car was gone. We walked through the house together, room by room, trying to assess what he'd touched, what he might be hiding. And that's when we found it. In the guest room closet, behind a stack of boxes, Nicole pulled out a dusty cardboard folder. Inside, printouts of my messages. Photos of me, sleeping, walking to work, sitting on the porch. A hand-drawn map of the house. With notes. She gets up around 6. She leaves back door unlocked on Mondays. She showers at 9 on weekends. I sat down on the floor and shook. He was watching me, planning, tracking me like I was a stranger in my own home. Nicole wanted to call the police. I stopped her. Not because I didn't think it was serious, but because I knew Tyler. He was careful, smart, manipulative. He'd spin it all. Say, I was unstable, emotional. And worse, there was no restraining order. Legally, he was still allowed in the house until I filed an eviction motion. The process could take months. That night, I bolted every window, double-locked every door, and slept with a kitchen knife under my pillow. The next morning, Tyler was back, standing in the kitchen, sipping coffee like nothing had happened.
He smiled when he saw me.
"You look tired, LYSS," he said softly. "Rough night."
I didn't respond.
Didn't blink. Just turned around and walked back into my room. And that's when I decided, if he wouldn't leave voluntarily, I'd make sure he had no choice. I didn't eat for the next 2 days. I couldn't. Every time I sat at the kitchen table, I imagined Tyler's hands on my utensils, his breath on my coffee mug, his eyes on my back as I sat there pretending life was normal. But it wasn't normal. And the scariest part? He was acting more normal than ever. He washed dishes, folded laundry, watered the plants. He even brought home groceries one evening. "Just in case you were running low," he said with a smirk as he unloaded the bags. A jar of strawberry jam, my favorite brand, one I hadn't told him about in years. He remembered, and I hated that he remembered. Nicole begged me to stay with her. "You're not safe there," she said. "You're playing with fire." But I couldn't leave, not yet. If I left the house, even temporarily, it might complicate the legal situation. Tyler would twist it to suggest abandonment or shared occupancy. I needed to prove that he was the intruder. So I stayed. And I started documenting everything. Every creepy comment. Every door left unlocked. Every new boundary crossed. I installed a hidden camera in the hallway, disguised as a phone charger. Another in the kitchen clock. I began recording voice memos, talking to myself, making time-stamped notes. If he was going to manipulate my sanity, I'd beat him with the truth. But Tyler was always one step ahead. The footage started disappearing. I checked the SD card in the hallway cam after a particularly tense night, and it was blank.
Wiped.
The kitchen camera? Yanked from the wall, wires exposed. I never confronted him. I didn't want him to know I was watching. But he knew. He always knew. One night, I came home from work and found the hallway mirror shattered. Nothing else touched.
Just that.
Glass scattered across the floor like shards of warning. There was no note. No footprints. Just a silence that screamed louder than any argument. The tension in the house was unbearable. He stopped sleeping in the guest room. He started sleeping on the living room couch. He said he liked being closer to the front door. But I knew better.
He wanted to be closer to me.
He wanted me to see him every time I went for a glass of water, every time I passed through the hall, every time I tiptoed toward the kitchen in the middle of the night. He wanted me to know I was never alone, never unwatched. One night, I woke up gasping for breath. My throat burned. My head throbbed. The smell of something sharp and chemical lingered in the air. I stumbled to the hallway, dizzy and disoriented, and there he was, Tyler, standing at the end of the hall, expressionless, holding a bottle of cleaning solution. "I thought I'd get an early start," he whispered, stepping into the bathroom and slamming the door. But I knew he wasn't cleaning. I threw open the windows, sat on the porch for hours with Daisy curled in my lap, her fur bristled, ears pinned back. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. That was the moment it clicked. He didn't just want to scare me. He wanted me to break, to leave, to run. He wanted me to surrender the house, to hand it to him like a gift he never deserved. And if I didn't, he'd unravel me until I did. I started seeing a therapist in secret. I used a fake name, paid in cash, and drove an hour away to avoid any traceable pattern. I needed someone to tell me I wasn't losing my mind. Dr. Langley was calm, clinical, but her eyes widened when I described the mirror, the footage, the photos. "You're not paranoid, Alyssa," she said. "You're being hunted. Slowly. Intentionally." The word hunted made my skin crawl. But she was right. I began to strategize. Tyler thrived on control. He expected me to fold,
To cry.
to scream. So I gave him nothing. I smiled at him over breakfast. I thanked him when he took out the trash. I left post-it notes that said, "Appreciate you," on the fridge. I became everything he didn't expect. Calm.
Pleasant. Controlled.
And I started rebuilding my support system quietly. I reconnected with Jenna, an old college friend who had become a real estate attorney. File for a forceful eviction, she said. It's slow, but it's a start. Get everything in writing. We drafted a notice and served it to Tyler via certified mail. When he opened the letter, standing in the hallway in his bare feet, he didn't react.
He just laughed.
Low and slow. War, huh, he whispered. All right then. That's when the gaslighting intensified. He started moving things. Important things. My passport vanished. My birth certificate. Daisy's vet records.
He didn't take them.
He hid them. And when I confronted him, "Why would I touch your stuff?" he asked, eyes wide with mock innocence. "You sure you're not just forgetting things again?" He even left me a bottle of ginkgo biloba on the counter one morning. "For your memory," the note read. I started sleeping in my car on weekends. Daisy in the passenger seat, me in the back with a blanket and my phone on silent. It wasn't safe, but it was safer. And then the text started. Blocked numbers. Random digits. "You're not fooling anyone. You think a piece of paper will stop me? I made you. I can unmake you." I saved them all. Sent screenshots to Jenna. Backed them up on a cloud he didn't know existed. Then came the breaking point. The evening was quiet.
Too quiet.
I walked in through the front door and stopped cold. The entire living room was rearranged. Furniture in different places. Photos taken off the wall. Daisy's litter box gone. I called out for her. Nothing. Panic set in. I searched every corner, every crevice, until finally, from inside the guest room closet, I heard the faintest meow. I opened the door. She was inside.
Trapped.
Shaking. The door had been blocked from the outside with a chair. I scooped her up, tears flooding my eyes. And on the floor behind her a note. "She'll be safe if you stop pushing me." I didn't cry that night. I boiled. Every cell in my body burned. He wanted a war? I was done playing defense. It was time to take everything from him. I woke up that morning with a single goal. Break Tyler before he broke me. No more tiptoeing. No more reacting. It was time to flip the board. I called Jenna and told her I was ready for Plan B. "We'll push for an emergency hearing," she said. "You have enough documented harassment now. It's time to escalate." I nodded silently. I could almost feel him watching me through the walls as I spoke. But for once, I didn't care. I wasn't afraid anymore. I took the next day off work and stayed home. It was a Tuesday, cloudy and cold. The kind of day where tension sits heavy in the air. Tyler was in the garage most of the morning. Doing what? I didn't know. He kept it locked, and I never had a key. That had always bugged me, even during our marriage. He called it his space, said it was for tools and man stuff. But after everything, I couldn't help but wonder, what was really behind that door? That afternoon, he came in wearing gloves, smelling like motor oil and ammonia. He didn't say a word. He walked past me like I didn't exist, which was fine. I had other plans. I waited until he left to go on a walk, his new routine. Likely a cover for checking in on whatever web of manipulation he'd spun outside the house. I stood at the garage door, listening. No movement. My hands trembled as I pulled a small lockpicking kit from my coat pocket. Thank you, YouTube. It took less than 3 minutes. The click was soft, but the feeling was seismic. Inside the garage, it was dark, colder than I expected. The overhead bulb flickered once, then held. What I saw made my stomach churn. There were shelves lined with jars, neatly labeled with masking tape, receipts, photos, cards, memories. Inside each jar were fragments of my life. Torn birthday cards, copies of my journals, even petals from bouquets I couldn't remember receiving. In the corner was a corkboard covered in photographs. Most were of me. Some from years ago, vacations, weddings, birthdays. But others were recent. Me sleeping. Me in the shower, barely visible through the frosted glass. Me on the porch in my robe, sipping coffee. Every single image was time-stamped and circled. My head spun. This wasn't just control. It was obsession. Deliberate. Calculated. He hadn't been trying to win me back or drive me out.
He had been documenting me.
Studying me, as if I were an exhibit. Or a possession. There was a drawer near the tool bench.
Locked.
I used a flathead to pop it open. Inside, I found something that made me stumble back. A small red notebook. Leather-bound. The edges frayed from use. It had my initials on the cover. I flipped through the pages, each filled with his handwriting. Every entry detailed something about me. She smiled when she saw the rain today, same smile she had when we first moved in. Left the bathroom light on again. I wonder if she knows I still hear her crying. She's been on the phone more. With Jenna maybe. Planning something. He'd been tracking my every move. My moods. My routines. He knew things I hadn't even admitted to myself. And then I reached the final page. She's getting too confident. I have to remind her this house still belongs to me. I made her. I gave her this life. If she won't stay, she doesn't get to keep any of it. Underneath the writing, a single photo. Daisy. In a cage. With a date written beneath it. Next week. I dropped the book. The air turned heavier, like it was pushing against my lungs. Next week? What was he planning? I took photos of everything. The jars. The board. The notebook. I backed them up instantly. 3 different clouds. 1 external drive hidden in my glove compartment. This wasn't just leverage. It was proof. And I would use it. That night, I pretended everything was fine. We ate in silence. Tyler scrolled on his phone like nothing had changed. Like he wasn't a ticking time bomb sitting 5 feet away. I watched his eyes, his hands, the rhythm of his breathing. I wasn't scared anymore. I was calculating. But then came the reveal I hadn't expected. The one that sent me spiraling. It was a text from Nicole. Just 5 words. He showed up at my job. My heart dropped. I called her instantly. Are you okay? She sounded shaken, whispering. He waited in the parking lot.
Said he was just passing by. But he asked about you.
About what we talk about. My skin went cold. How long was he there? Too long. I think he was trying to intimidate me. He was spreading. He wasn't just trying to control me anymore. He was going after my support system. My only safe connections. That was the moment I knew Tyler was unraveling. And desperate men are dangerous. I didn't sleep. I sat by the window with a kitchen knife under a towel on my lap, Daisy curled at my feet. Every sound made me flinch. But the fear wasn't for me anymore. It was for everyone else. He was widening the web. He was telling me, if you can't be controlled, those around you will pay the price. I scheduled a meeting with Jenna the next morning. I showed her everything, the photos, the notebook, the jars, the recordings. She was stunned silent for a moment. Then she said, "We're going straight to court with this. Emergency protective order. We'll subpoena the footage from every nearby camera. This isn't just a domestic issue anymore. This is criminal behavior." I nodded. But inside, I knew something she didn't. This wasn't over. Tyler wasn't going to walk away quietly. He had one more move to make. And I had to be ready. The following night it came. 2:13 a.m. The door creaked open. I'd left it unlocked on purpose. He stepped in quietly, assuming I was asleep. But I was wide awake, phone recording under my pillow, lights off, Daisy tucked in the closet with her bed. I watched through half-closed eyes as he walked toward me. His breathing was steady.
Come.
He reached the edge of the bed.
Paused.
Then whispered, "You don't deserve this house." And dropped something onto the bed. A photo, burned around the edges. Me from 5 years ago. In the wedding dress I'd donated to charity. He backed away, closed the door, left. I sat up and stared at the photo. It smelled like smoke. And something else. Finality. That burned photo was the final straw. No more waiting. No more warnings. I pressed send on the email I had drafted 2 nights ago, attaching every image and recording to Jenna, the police, and a few trusted friends, my backup safety net in case something happened to me. I also left a printed copy of everything in a sealed envelope with Nicole. It was labeled simply, "If anything happens to me, start here." The morning was unusually quiet. Tyler stayed locked in the garage again. And this time, I didn't want to know what he was doing. Because I had already filed the emergency restraining order. I had signed the eviction petition. And the court had set the hearing for Friday. It was Tuesday. 3 more days. Just 3 more days of walking on glass. 3 more days pretending he wasn't unraveling by the hour. But then he made the first move. It happened that night. I was feeding Daisy when I heard the front door unlock. I peeked through the blinds. Tyler was outside talking to a man in a dark hoodie. They shook hands. Something passed between them. Cash. A USB? I couldn't tell. But one thing was clear. This wasn't casual. This was business. And whatever it was, it involved me. I didn't sleep. Again. This time, I placed a chair under my doorknob. Knife still under the pillow. My heart wasn't just pounding from fear anymore. It was beating with resolve. I wasn't going to be a victim in my own home. The next morning, Tyler was gone. Vanished. No note. No text. His car keys were gone, and so were 2 of the boxes from the garage. I should have felt relieved. But instead, I felt like the calm before a storm. I checked the security cam I'd hidden in the front hallway. He had disabled it. Clever. But I had a backup in the stairwell light fixture. And that one caught everything. At 4:42 a.m., he came downstairs with gloves on, dragging 2 boxes. He took something from the kitchen drawer. Then he looked into the camera directly into it and smiled. That was the moment I knew. He wanted me to know. He wasn't done. He was baiting me. I called Jenna. We have to move the hearing up. He's escalating. But she said the judge wasn't available until Friday. We're working on a temporary exclusion order to get him out sooner. Just hold on.
Hold on?
I felt like I was holding my breath every second of every day. And Tyler, he was watching that pressure build, waiting to strike. Then Wednesday came, and he returned. Not through the front door. Through the attic crawl space. I heard the scratching first. Then a dull thud. It came from above my bedroom. At first, I thought I imagined it. But then Daisy barked and ran in circles under the attic hatch. I froze, held my breath, and called Nicole. "Stay on the phone with me," I whispered. "He's in the attic." "What?" "Call the police." "I can't. Not yet. I need proof." I crept upstairs, holding the phone in one hand, my heart a drum in my throat. The attic ladder was down, the hatch left open, and on the 3rd step his boot print. Large. Fresh. Still wet with dust. I slowly climbed up, 1 step at a time, praying he wasn't still inside. The attic was dark except for a single bulb. And there, beneath the beam, sat a stack of boxes labeled Alyssa. Inside, old journals, childhood photo albums, documents from my first job. He had brought them up here.
Why? Then I saw it.
A small envelope taped to the underside of a rafter. Written in thick black marker. "This ends when you admit it." Inside was a photo of us, taken on our honeymoon. Except I was cut out, slashed with something sharp. He had taken himself out of the image. The meaning hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't about keeping me. It was about erasing me from my own memories.
From my own story.
I nearly collapsed. But I made it back down, locked the attic, and called Jenna again. "We need police intervention now." She agreed. And that night, we filed for an emergency removal. Thursday. Everything went quiet again.
Too quiet.
I slept with the lights on, knife in one hand, phone in the other. No sounds. No signs. Just silence. Until 5:02 a.m. when the fire alarm went off. I sprang up and ran to the kitchen. Smoke. The toaster was flaming. A towel had been shoved inside. Sabotage. I grabbed the extinguisher and killed the flames. Tyler was nowhere in sight. But he had been there. The back door was slightly ajar. No footprints. No notes. Just the smell of smoke. And a single red thread caught on the doorknob.
From the hoodie he wore that night.
That was it. That was my breaking point. I didn't wait for the court. I drove straight to the sheriff's office and demanded assistance. By noon, 2 deputies arrived at the house and did a full sweep. Tyler wasn't there, but his things were. And based on my evidence, they served him with a notice of forced removal within 24 hours. Friday. The confrontation. The last one. He showed up just after 10 a.m., his face smug as ever, until he saw the uniformed officers waiting for him in the driveway. That wiped the smirk right off. "You called them," he hissed. I stood my ground.
No.
The law did. He tried to argue, tried to protest. Said I was making it all up. Said I was hysterical. The deputy held up the court order. "You are no longer allowed on this property. Any attempt to return will result in arrest." Tyler's face went pale, then red, then pale again.
He opened his mouth to speak.
But instead, he spat on the ground and walked away. No boxes. No goodbyes. Just rage. I watched him go. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just exhaled. For the first time in weeks, I felt the pressure release. He was gone. But that wasn't the end. Because 10 minutes later, I received a message. No name. No number.
Just a video clip.
Of me. From the attic camera. Sleeping. Time-stamped 3 days ago. Before I even knew he had been in the attic. My hands trembled as I deleted the file. But the feeling didn't leave. Because even though the man was gone, the presence remained. The damage was deep. But I was deeper. And I wasn't going to let fear win. Not anymore. 3 weeks had passed. Tyler was officially barred from being within 500 feet of the house. The locks were changed. The court ruled in my favor. The house was mine. And yet, I still jumped every time the wind hit the windows too hard. I still double-checked every door, twice, before going to sleep. I still dreamed of the attic. That moment I looked up and knew he had been above me all along. Watching. Waiting. Plotting. I'd gotten the cameras replaced, this time professionally installed by Nicole's security firm contact. They were motion-triggered and uploaded everything to the cloud. I even got Daisy a GPS collar. But no security system could reset the feeling that my life had been hollowed out. I wasn't Alyssa before anymore. I wasn't Alyssa with Tyler. I was something new. Something forged through madness. Nicole stayed over the first weekend. We drank wine on the porch and lit candles. I wanted to feel normal again. "I still don't understand what his endgame was," she said softly. "Control," I whispered. "It was never about love. Or even hate. He just wanted to prove he could undo me."
Nicole looked over at me.
"But he didn't." I nodded. But I didn't believe it, not yet. Not fully. The next day, I found something strange in the mailbox. A postcard. No return address. The front was a photo of a motel in Arizona. The back just said, "Nice view. Wish you were here." No signature. Just a small drawing in the corner. A pair of eyes. Watching. I filed another report. The police opened a new investigation. But there was nothing they could prove. No prints. No camera caught who left it. The footage glitched for a 17-minute window. 17 minutes. Just long enough for someone to walk up the driveway and disappear again. I tried to move on. I started therapy. I took up yoga. Even returned to work slowly. Clients were kind, patient. They called me brave. But I didn't feel brave. I felt haunted. One night, I finally opened the sealed box of things Tyler had dragged into the attic. I needed closure. I needed to understand what he'd meant. Inside was more than childhood mementos. There were dozens of notes, all written in his handwriting. Journal entries. Obsessive thoughts.
Mostly about me.
About our marriage. About what I'd taken from him. And then, I found a note titled, "Plan B if she wins." It was chilling. Step-by-step instructions for framing me, manipulating video evidence, even attempting to have me institutionalized. He never went through with it. But he planned it. He wanted it. That made it worse. The therapy intensified after that. The nightmares came and went. I stayed away from dating, from trusting, from everything that felt uncertain. Until one evening, while cleaning out the guest room closet, I found something else. A phone. Old. Burner style. Hidden behind the insulation panel. Battery dead. I charged it anyway. And when it lit up, one message. One photo. Dated 2 months before the divorce. It showed Tyler. Standing in our bedroom. With another woman. Topless.
Smiling.
And on the nightstand behind them, my necklace. The one I thought I lost at a conference. He'd had someone in our home. In our bed. While I was out there defending our marriage, he was desecrating it. I dropped the phone and screamed. That scream cracked something in me. Not in a weak way. In a freeing way. It was the final truth. The final nail. Not only had he tried to manipulate me, scare me, control me, he had been betraying me long before it ever fell apart. The next morning, I called Jenna. Asked if that burner phone could be used in court for an amendment to our filing.
She said yes.
Because it proved intent. It proved violation. And most of all, it proved I was never the problem. 6 weeks later, Tyler was arrested. Not for stalking, but for fraud. Apparently, he'd been embezzling money from a client he worked with during our marriage. My initial investigation helped them connect the dots. I watched the news report, heart-pounding, as they listed the charges. Money laundering, wire fraud, identity theft, and one line that made my breath catch. He was also found with surveillance footage and photographs taken without consent from multiple locations. He had been doing it to others. I wasn't the only one. But I was the one who had exposed him. The prosecutor reached out, asked if I'd testify. I said yes. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I needed to say the truth out loud. And because someone had to stop him for good. The trial was brutal. He pled not guilty. Sat in the courtroom like he was untouchable. But when they presented the video clip from the attic, of me sleeping, unknowing, vulnerable, his expression finally cracked. He looked small, cornered. The judge sentenced him to 15 years. No parole for the first 7. I went home that night and stood in the backyard. It was quiet, safe. Daisy lay beside my feet, peaceful. The wind rustled the leaves. And for the first time in over a year, I felt still, whole.
I turned my phone off for the weekend.
Deleted all the surveillance apps. Shut down the court notifications. Lit a candle on the porch. And opened a fresh journal. I once lived with a ghost who wore a man's face. He tried to take everything from me, my home, my safety, my truth. But he forgot something. You can haunt a house. But you cannot haunt a woman who has already faced her worst fear and lived. I made sure he had no choice. Because I finally made mine.